Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is your Omi Inca 7 on Omi's Productive Studio. And this is also your Omi Inca 8 on Organic Broadcaster. I am bringing you a series of epics on the experience of Harriet Tubman. And today I will be talking in my natural voice to address some issues about the controversy over the Harriet Tubman story. I want to make it clear as to why I chose to channel Harriet Tubman when there were many other characters out there like Madam C.J. Walker, also many other Americans who are great all-American heroes. But Harriet is my favorite by far. Let me give you a little background knowledge of who I am and why I have chosen to channel Harriet Tubman. I definitely believe you should know and understand why. It wasn't by choice or accident, it was by divine order. I've been rightly directed to be a part of Harriet Tubman's life. And it didn't just happen overnight when she started filming her movie. It stemmed from me gaining the nickname of Moses while in the school system representing families of children with special needs. I was given the name of Moses and was told that I was delivering children out of bondage, just like Harriet had been delivering our people out of slavery. Now, I want to mention a few things here. I know there's a lot of controversy in the news, in the Los Angeles news. I understand Cynithia Revo had made a statement that the Harriet Tubman movie is not a story of slavery, but a story of freedom. I like to beg the difference with her. When you want to define the difference between slavery and freedom, we still have not been given our access to our status as well as our citizenship. So we have not gained freedom. And Harriet should still be here fighting for us because we have not been delivered out of the bondage and out of the belly of the whale. So to correct Mrs. Lemon on that, I'd like to say that we have distorted this whole atmosphere around slavery. And I want to make some corrections. As a history teacher, I have always taught my children in school to own up to slavery and accept it. But unfortunately, a number of children in the school district, right there in the school district of Illinois and Webster Middle School, those children sought to disassociate themselves with slavery. As a matter of fact, they refused to be a part of a classroom that taught slavery, and they threw their books out the window. Then I was brought in as a specialist to reintroduce to them their history so they can see it from a different perspective. Now, granted that there are a lot of Caucasians that want to present our story and bring it from their perspective because it's a lot easier to swallow down, being that we were among colonization and a lot of warring went on with the capturing of slaves, all for monetary gain. So a number of people benefited from slavery and they lined their pockets. And it's kind of hard for them to swallow down that a large group of people were desecrated, they lost their lives, and they are now owed reparation. So it's much easier for the non-Melanite individual to swallow down a more applicable story. But we are not about the business of trying to create applicable stories to make it easy on the eyes for the outside world and to make it digestible for the Caucasians. So I'm not here to appease anyone. As a history teacher, I like the truth to get out. As a prior history teacher and a lecturer and a historian. I like the truth to get out. As you notice in my satires, I began to go back and tell the story and retell the story of Harriet. Some of you might not know this, but the story that is out there now is distorted, and all of it needs to be brought in and hurled back in and revamped and retold again. So African Americans, I'm appealing to your best interest. Now that we have Spike Lee and many others that are out there casting film, we could do our own film and correct the whole story. Even the current story of Harriet Tubman is distorted. Believe it or not, as you could depict in some of my satires, I did leak out a few things about the truth about Harriet. Number one, she worked for the government. She was a spy. No one wants to tell that story. It's not digestible. It's not a part of the diet for the non-Melanite man, and it might affect the world if they saw what the colonizers were doing to disrupt Black folks' lives. Now, I am not here to make it digestible for anyone, and especially the non-Melanite population. Mr. Enforcer. Mr. Enforcer, it is time that we come clean about the truth about who Harriet really was and what she stood for. And even if our people as African Americans can't digest it, so be it. Take a digestive aid and call me in the morning and let me know how you feel. But Harriet belongs to our population. I've inherited Harriet from the school district. They gave me Harriet. They created a character for me in Harriet. So I came to act out that character. And I have been for over the 20 years that I was in the school district, because I was delivering children and snatching these souls from the fire. So I gained the name of Moses. Moses, Moses, lift up your hand and deliver us. And that's what I was to various school districts that I had occupied in. So I wanted to lay that foundation. And another reason why I wanted to continue with my epics in Harriet Tubman story is because I represent a class of women that were in trouble with the government because the government saw fit to relinquish our jobs and to bring in other stateside people to take over our jobs after we were promised and told we would be promoted and given increases. That did not happen. A treaty broken, gone down the drain. But nevertheless, in trying to represent as a class agent, this is a story that's never been told before. It never got out the door, but you can find part of the story online. Now, here is my tale from my perspective, is that it's still up in the air and still has not been resolved. But when you're in the struggle, like Harriet was in the struggle, I compare myself to Harriet, having the government up on my shoulder, the whole weight of the government as a class agent. Some of you may have never heard the story, but you could go out on my Omi's production studio and it's been recorded there. And that story is a story from my perspective, and it could be lined up with the EEOC because everything was documented and it was written down and it is available to be read. So I fabricate nothing before you. I have no reason to, because truly, in being the class agent, carrying the weight of 7 other women who were discriminated against, who had to fight and who gave up. But because I was a class agent, I had to keep pressing on with the government up on my shoulders. And I believe Harriet, too, had to press on with the government up on her shoulders. So we share life stories, and that is why I'm mentioning this today. Now, this story isn't about me and my struggle with the EEOC to bring out the truth about 8 women being discriminated against. When it finally came to fruition, they distorted a large portion of those black women's character. As a matter of fact, they bought statements and lied to get those statements and used those statements when they had been sworn in a court of law. They have not changed those statements. They have not brought those 7 women and myself up front and apologized. They have not set the record straight. Yes, we did find discrimination. Yes, they did lie and distort those allegations. And these women should be commended, and they should be brought up front, and they should have their day in court when they finally give them the settlement that was left on the table that was never delivered to me. They did not want to accept the class agent case, but they decided to accept my individual case. And rather than to admit any guilt, they said they would settle for a certain amount. They would settle and the case would be over. The case is still sitting on someone's EEOC desk. Even though they agreed to settle, they forfeited on the settlement. Now, I'm not here to talk about my story, but to compare my story to Harriet Tubman. And this is why I channel her. This is why you see me get into her story, because I know the trials and tribulation she must have went through. But here is why I'm really here today. I want to deviate from my story, and I want to tell the story that this particular movie had attempted to do. Once again, they wanted to lie to the world about what happened to us as slaves. They wanted to say, no, there was no slavery involved here. This was a freedom story. And Cynithia Revo wanted to press that point. This is a freedom story for all white folks to come in and see that we gave these good black people their freedom. And that's all it's about. It's not about any slavery. Nobody got beat, or you didn't see babies being ripped out of women. This is not about that gory story. Well, thank you very much for saving us from that gory part of the story called slavery. But it still existed. No matter what Mrs. Lemon said or Cynithia Revo said, it still existed. Let me get into the heart of what I'm trying to say here. Who is Cynithia Revo? Can anyone tell me who went and did a background check of Cynithia Revo? Where did she come from? Was she created for us? Did someone manufacture this character? It must have been, because nobody has any documentation on her background check. Is she a descendant of slaves? Does she know the slave struggle? Did her mama or pappy ever tell her about the struggle that their ancestors went through in slavery? Where did she come from? Let's go back. Now let's go back and redo this. Cynithia Revo is a graduate from London School. And Africans don't get to go to London to go to any one school unless they're from the elitists. What elitists could she possibly have been from? Just tell me. I know there in the Western world of Africa, there are groups of people called Igbo. Say it with me. Igbo. Let it roll off your tongue a little bit. Igbo. 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 The Igbos have 3 classes of people. 3 classes. And those classes that they have, out of those 3 classes, one is the elite who's born free and born with the silver spoon. And then there's some that are born into slavery, and some that they use to pay their debts off, and some doing ceremonial productions. If some great person have died, those slaves get chosen to die with that elite person buried alive. That's a part of their culture in Igbo land. Look it up. You don't have to go about what Omi is saying. I study Yoruba lifestyle. But this is not Yoruba we're talking. We're talking about Igbo. So she was an Igbo girl who went to the London schools, and they sent her there with the monies they probably made from slavery, because some of the Igbos sold slaves, Africans, into slavery. And some of them even owned slaves. Cynthia even said it herself. She wrote it in an article about her grandfather being the owner of slaves. She told on herself. She began to paint a picture because nobody was asking, can you tell me, Cynthia, what's your lineage? Where are you from? What part of Africa? No one was asking, so she volunteered it. I'm from Igbo, and my grandfather, he owned slaves. He was a slave owner. Come on now, people. You choose a young lady to play the part of Harriet, whose grandfather was a slave owner? What a mockery. Now she can say we sold those people into slavery and we watched them go through this terrible time in their life where they were hunted down like slaves. And then we create the utmost sin. We knew that the Caucasians were after Harriet and she had a bounty on her head. We knew that. And wasn't it a great bounty? But we have nothing that's written down in history that tells us that there were any black men that signed on as those men who were running after those slaves that had bounties on their head. Not one. Show me something in history where black men had signed up to get money paid to them to go out and look for runaway slaves, especially those that had bounties on their head. How did you come up with Big Long? Where did he come from? Who created that character? We didn't need you to create any more scenarios in Harriet's story. Her story should have been clarified as to what she was doing in the underground. See, you made it look like Harriet was carrying the caravan all by herself and she wasn't doing nothing but moving people from one navigation to the next. She had to know something about navigation. She had to know how to read a map. And Harriet would tell you herself, I can't read. Missy can't read. And Missy can't read no map. Missy was going by the North Star. But these people were traveling all over the North, back and forth from the South. So Harriet wasn't out there by herself. You haven't even did a good job in telling the true story of what Harriet was doing down there in those coal mines when she was operating a train. See, I'm going to leave that for later. That's a whole nother story. But see, you want the truth to get out. We cannot take an Igbo woman from Igbo land whose grandfather participated in selling the slaves into slavery in the first place. Now she's going to come out like a natural woman and she's going to play the part of Harriet. How convenient. And we as black people, you want us to swallow that down and say, okay, it's all right for them to alter the play and to change the epic. No, it's not all right. You brought a man in that was persecuting black women on the screen for other parts of the world to see. Now, this headhunter was smashing in black women and pushing them down and hurting them and then raping the white women. Since when have we heard of any black man, dead or alive, going in and out of white women, raping them without him being hung up on a tree? Now, you wanted us to believe that? That is make-believe for sure. We can't buy that. And when looking at that movie, it caused us to want to regurgitate something is wrong here. Are we creating a scenario and painting a picture so that the world will believe that white folks had nothing to do with slavery? And there was no slavery. It was just getting their freedom. Get your freedom. Everybody, get your freedom. It's for sale. If that's the case, the immigrants came over and you handed them all of our freedom. You handed them our land. You handed them the treaty that you wrote for us, and you gave those people that came over from Europe all of our money. And now you still want us to swallow that and think that it's okay that you don't owe reparation. You do owe reparation. You made a mistake, and you took the people off the list who were immigrants who came from Europe, and you handed them our reparation in addition to our land. Well, we want it back. And we recognize what tricks you've been playing. This whole movie is a setup. You want us to shut up for once and all and say, here's your story, I'm going to give it to you. We got to stop accepting your story. Now you got Cynithia Revo up for a nomination, a Tony Award, as well as the other great outstanding award. She's up for them, and she's the only black woman that's up for this award. Who nominated her? Why do we have to bring in a class of white people to create her role, to tell her who she should be? White historians, they don't know nothing about the descendants of slave struggle. And then you turn around and give her an Emmy Award and a Tony Award, and we are not even voting. You're counting our numbers and saying, oh, look at the box office numbers. Now we got to give her an award. We got to say she did that job right. Sign, sealed, and delivered. No, it's not signed and delivered. And if someone hands her an award, we are going to look down on her because she didn't earn that award. She distorted Harriet's story. And when you brought in that black headhunter, you wanted to destroy the picture of black men to show that it was the black men that were going after his own black women. You wanted to distort the picture and the view we had of black men so the world could see, oh, it was the Africans' own black men going after them. It wasn't a white man. It was the black men who were going after them. You wanted to paint a picture of the black man that was not conducive for black women to turn us against the black men so that we will open up and leave ourselves available for any other man whosoever will. No, it won't work. Now, Harriet's been through enough. Now you're going to turn this movie into a desecrated movie, and you want us to digest this lock, stock, and barrel. We cannot. We are throwing and regurgitating this story up. It has to go back to the box office and has to be reviewed and done again. You did not check out Cynithia Revo's background. How is it that her grandfather is the one that sold our African people into slavery and died with honors, having 6 other Africans who were slaves that were alive, killed, and dumped in the grave with them? And then she writes about it and talks about it. Well, I don't know where you got Cynithia Revo from. I don't know how you created her, but she don't know our story. She ain't one of us. She is an Igbo. And she comes from a high class of Igbo who profited from the backs of selling slaves. And so did all her people and her grandpa. Now she's going to profit at the box office by distorting our story? No, this cannot happen to Harriet. Harriet told me she would turn over in her grave, and before she turn over in her grave, she coming after y'all. She coming after y'all. She's still a spirit, don't forget. Her spirit has been on this earth. You kept it alive. You summons Harriet here. You keep waking her up from the grave. You done did it now. Because Harriet is out like Wi-Fi now. Wherever you look, Harriet's going to be there. She's going to make you get that story right. And Cynithia, you better be the first one to step up and say, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I should have told you I was from the Igbo land. I should have told you my grandfather sold y'all into slavery. I should have told you we got rich off the selling of slaves. Yes, Cynthia's going to have her day to speak up and tell the truth. You cannot receive rewards that you didn't earn. You did not earn this one, sister. I'm sorry. And the people that put the cast together did a disservice to DOS, African American descendants of slaves, all of the actresses that are available here that know the struggle and the story. You looked over them. All of the other cast and women who could have played this part, they got looked over. I know how this thing could be, because I went through the struggle of being a class agent. And I wanted people to know that Harriet had like similar struggles that I had. So I picked up on Harriet's channeling, and I began to acclimate her story. And I had to get in the role of Harriet to make sure that nothing wasn't left out this time. Well, you've done it this time. Those people who have seen the Harriet Tubman story, you can't fool them. They know that you distorted and disrespected the African American race by making them not realize that a man over in Africa who sold their pappies and mammies into slavery is now still in the picture, in the background, with his granddaughter who is distorting your story. No, you cannot distort the descendants of slave story. Harriet won't let you. She's going to be on the scene everywhere you look now. Her spirit is here and is activated. And because you keep stirring Harriet up and waking her up from her transition, she's going to show y'all better than she could tell you. Because these lies will never live and a lie will never stand. So I'm concerned. A lot of people that are descendants of slaves, including myself, are wondering, what are you trying to do to us? Are you trying to make us schizophrenic? Are you trying to say that we miss the memo and we don't know the real story? Even if you never told us the story, something was going to come in our spirit and say, this is not how the Harriet Tubman story went. The lies that were already told about her traveling to and fro, delivering large sums of people, was a lie in and of itself. And these safe houses that we are looking for now, we can't find them. Where are they? Somebody even distorted Harriet's story. Well, you better get it right. You better get it right, because African Americans are finna step up. And they finna represent the true story of Harriet Tubman. And everything that you tried to do to desecrate the fact that descendants of slaves are owed reparation, God is going to get that too. Because you won't be control of the bank pretty soon. God is going to get all of that. And since you refuse to give us the money that we are entitled to, he's going to take it away from you down to the 1,000th generation. And if you know, like I know, you would sit down and you would reason with us, descendants of slaves, and you would do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. Go ahead and dismiss Miss Revo and let her know it was a mistake. It was an accident. And you cannot give her these awards, and neither will we sit around and okay it, because she's not Harriet Tubman, and she did not win these awards fair and square. They were given to her because she decided to participate in another lie to fool the African Americans and try to swindle them out of their birthright. You can't take our birthright away from us. It's only a matter of time when that money you owe us is going to be given to us without your permission. But what you must get together is to stop lying and perpetuating heresy, because a lot of black people are fed up. And they're coming on the airways and they're talking about this new news of how you try to lull us to sleep and pull one over on the African Americans of descendants of slaves again. You cannot do this. We will not allow you to do it. And just to let you know we will not allow you to do it, we are going to exploit Mrs. Cynithia Revo and expose her as being a part of this calamity where she thinks she can fall down on us because she comes from riches. We don't care about her riches and the amount of money she got and who her grandfather is. We're going to expose this thing. Stay tuned.
No, I Won't Settle. Read by the author, Sherelle Omiinka Bidiako Garth. No, I won't settle. No, will I be brought. Not after all the lessons that I've been taught. Lessons of how people can push your backs against the wall and harassing you until you fall, trying to make you feel unfit to run an operation that was never legit. No, I won't settle. No, will I be brought. Not after all the lessons that I have been taught. The lessons in dedication and commitment that are paid with a price in exchange for avoiding a long drawn-out fight. Coveting the possessions of others, it's more than a sin. No, you can't win. It will only get you bypass jail and straight to hell. And those who participate in it don't sing the seldom farewell. No, I won't settle. Nor will I be brought. Not after all the lessons that I've been taught. The lessons in how hands can become tied, making an organization result to losing their pride. Conspiring a crime, working up plans like this can only get you time. Plotting schemes to lay hold and blame will only get you caught up into the heat of the flame, while screaming out it's a low-down dirty shame. No, I won't settle. Nor will I be brought. Not after all the lessons that I have been taught. Lessons of how time can be recaptured, nor can it be replaced. With money, it could never be erased. To the human race, it's a disgrace and such a waste. No, I won't settle. Nor will I be brought. Not after all the lessons that I have been taught. Lessons in lies and how people use them to reprise. Those who invest in them can make them thrive and survive and somehow stay alive. The real lesson is first you receive the lesson, then you get the teaching, and somewhere in between there is the preaching. I don't want to leave you with the impression that I've settled, nor that I've been brought and forgotten all the lessons that I have been taught.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to read you a couple of my poems that I have written, that I wrote while going through being the class agent. This one's called A Scar. A scar is sexism, classism, ageism, racism. A scar is isms that hold us back, creating a deficiency and a lack. A scar is visible but mostly unseen to the eyes of the average human being. They deter us from reaching our dream. A scar can come in different sexes. Sometimes they appear in the heterosexual. A scar comes in classes. They suppress and even try to undermine the masses. A scar comes in all ages. Sometimes they don't develop to their full stages. A scar comes on all faces, and they can show up in unfamiliar places, or you can even find them hiding there amongst the races. The next one is a chief and not an Indian. Born of the Blackfoot Indian tribe, one of the real reasons why I still survive. To those with opinions who wonder why I choose to be a chief and not an Indian. For I was tribal, you see. My destiny was to be foretold, in the prophecy to be unfold, of a leader to come, and a real gift even to some. Raised around the circle of the tree of life, with a dream catcher used as a device. This is why I choose to be a chief and not an Indian. It was a vision of a leader to come, and a real gift even to some. with the chief at the center as the family link. This was one of the tools used to keep a leader in sync. Raised in a family of 18 with the chief as the Indian. And if you wonder where the 8th chief arrived, it should be no real surprise, for I'm the real leader of the pack, with all 10 Indian who've got my back. This is why I choose to be a chief and not an Indian. It was a vision of a leader to come, and a real gift even to some. Why Mama made her transition when I was just 2. I tried to follow in her footsteps after her life was through. Stole our language, pushed us into anguish, attempted to render us mute. That's when we had to hit you with a suit. Took us to a level of deprivation, which led us to call for reparation. The next one is a real soldier. I didn't come here to put on your gear, aligning myself with your soldiers in fear. I'm not just rapping, I'm real sincere. For this time was reserved for those who could persevere. You got a real soldier. I thought I had told you that you got a real soldier, and that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. So lay down your arms, you imposter. This is for all you detailed characters in disguise. No longer will you be able to reprise. Didn't come here to win your medal prize. I'm on a mission, that's what you really despise. You got a real soldier. I thought I told you that you got a real soldier, and that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. So lay down your arms, you imposter. I took a job on tour overseas to only discover that my family and I would now be under siege. I'm behind enemy lines. I'm fighting in a war that's not even mine. I aim to stand my ground like the Board of Education versus Brown. You got a real soldier. I thought I told you that you got a real soldier, and that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. So lay down your arms, you imposter. So it was your plan to inseminate false evidence to incriminate, which only led you to discriminate. Was it the scholar in me that caused you to hate, forcing you to enter into this fatal debate? Did you actually think that you could succeed, to execute your own laws that you wouldn't even heed? You got a real soldier. I thought I had told you that you got a real soldier, and that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. So lay down your arms, you imposter. While looking back in retrospective, you never should have challenged the queen of intellectual. Why didn't you know that I was sent from the green light of the benevolent? I'm battling you right here on your own land in the Netherlands. Why the very cries of the people summons me here. They have a mighty warrior, void of all fear. Why my very words are charged with energy and are ordered not to return until to me void, but to accomplish that which is intended, until your very ways you have amended. I'm a soldier. I thought I had told you that I'm a soldier, and that no weapons formed against me shall prosper. So lay down your arms, you imposter. Refuse to take your brand. Instead, I took a stand. Now watch me enter into a divine man. Attempted cultural genocide. I wonder, will the courts override? Or will this be a case for the media to decide? Wait, hold up. Didn't I tell you? I was a born strategician, while you're dealing with one of the baddest practitioner. While I was born under the sign of fire, I entered this world with water surrounding me, having the whole host of heaven on my side. Therefore, I will not be reprised. I will not be reprised. So I was born in the year of Maya, which embodies the doctrine of divinity of law and order. I'll wear your heart against the double halls of truth. And just as a rule of standard, I'll measure your deeds against the cubic too. then I'll throw the papyrus scepter book at you. By now, you should know who I am. By now, you should know who I am. I'm a real soldier. I thought I had told you that I'm a real soldier. So lay down your arms, you imposter. I'm more than a conqueror. Yes, I'm more than a conqueror. Thank you so very much for listening to that broadcast. And all right, thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you, listening audience. This is Omiinka 7 on Omi's Productive Studio, as also Omiinka 8 on Spreaker. I'd like to thank you for tuning in, for me to put my 2 cents in. I'm still concerned as how the general public is going to view this movie. Every year we get taken with the slave movie, and it's so overwhelming that it does more damage to us. We're not going to take it anymore, and we're not going to leave the theater feeling damaged and feeling poor in spirit. We're going to lift our spirit, and we're not going to let just anybody come into our arena and dictate to us who was born with royalty. Yes, Mrs. Cynithia Revo was born with royalty and riches. That's the only way she could have found herself in London schools. So I want to say for the record, we're going to have this whole movie redone. Hopefully someone black will step up and redo the movie. I want to see it done justice because Harriet is my favorite and my mentor and one who I represent. And I hope I do her justice when I go into the schools to talk about who Harriet Tubman really was and to shine some light on the story for the youngsters to have a better view of history so that they won't think that she was God's given that could do it all and deliver all the people without the help of the other Aborigines. You must understand, Harriet was one of those great people that supported the DOS, the descendants of slaves, and fought in the war, but she had other help, and we must talk about that other help so we make sure that we don't make her out to be a giant bigger than who she is, and then bring in a false individual to play her role who wants to desecrate her and whose grandfather already proved that by selling Africans into slavery. Now, please find out who Cynithia Revo is. Do a background check of her. Thoroughly find out what part of Africa she came from. If she came from the Western world, explain what the traditions are of the Western world, because she cannot fool us when we know that she was Igbo. We know what goes on in Igbo land and how Igbos are treated. We know about the 3 classes of Igbos and how they're divided separately, and each one of them have a different responsibility. You can either be born into riches and born free, and born with a silver spoon in your mouth. And I think Mrs. Cynithia Revo was just that. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming on board to listen.
Voices Out of Zion, arranged by the author Omiinka Bidiako Garth. These voices out of Zion are crying, take up a wailing for my people, for a voice of wailing out of Zion shall be heard. Take up a wailing for my people. You moaning women, take up a wailing for my people. Women will come from all over just to stand on holy ground, from the east and the west and the north and the south. These women will be put to the test to cry out in one great voice, to atone for all of our sin. Then we shall be a great nation, and they shall atone for the nation's sin all over the world for men.
Thank you very much. You're so kind sometimes. Thank you very much. And we've just completed our broadcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for another epic from the category of Harriet Tubman's story, Lessons Out of History School, Lessons Out of the History class, and we'll be back at you again to bring another episode of Harriet Tubman. Thank you so much. Once again, good evening.